What is up, guys? Welcome back to yet another Mangodsplaining Mushoku Tensei, a series of videos where I scour the internet to look for the worst takes on the Mushoku Tensei anime series and give my thoughts on it from the perspective of somebody that has read the novel series up to volume 22, just going through and looking for weird reviews, people that are angry about the anime itself, and just give my perspective on different issues they might have with the series. You know, maybe give a little more context based on, yes, some stuff being cut from the anime adaptation from the light novel, all that kind of stuff, and yes, get a little bit of laugh out of it. As per usual, the purpose of this video series is not to hunt down the individuals that are actually posting these things, even though they can out themselves. It's happened in the past. I don't want to blast their name out there. I'm just taking the text from their actual reviews and just, again, analyzing it. I'm not really calling for people to do a crazy backward search to try to find them or anything like that. It's just a fun series. Let's just have fun with it, and let's just dive into this particular set of them. I went for mixed reviews once again, but I'm inching more into the second part of the first season just to kind of mix things up, even though they're still going to bring up the same arguments as always, but let's dive into it. We open up the review with them claiming that they dropped it with episode 4. That's not a good sign. Well, animated trash. Disclaimer, I have read manga for 4 arcs. Now you all know why I picked this one. Now all the light novel fans know exactly why I chose this one. The manga is not the anime, is not the light novel. I loved watching this series and people going, my gosh, that didn't happen in the manga. It's not the manga. The manga is seen by as many people as being just a weird spin-off. It's not canon. Yeah, it follows the same premise, but it's not the story. It is super comical and dumb. This is yet another power fantasy isekai. Really? Where the MC is apparently strong for no reason. Really? Of course, the in-world reasons is he worked hard in his second life, but the show makes no effort for it to feel that way. It's just a giant time skip and lazy tool for the author. Honestly, I'm not sure how this remotely gets close to an 8 compared to other isekais, but I'm guessing it's all the light novel manga readers reviewing the entire manga and boosting the score rather than this particular show, aka first arc, if we even finish it. What? The manga readers? Again, the manga readers are the manga readers. The light novel readers are the light novel readers. As to which ones would be boosting it, I don't know. Again, this is based on the first season, which was visually pleasing. And I think, me personally, I think the director / series composition writer / script writer, he did it all at once for the first season. He did an incredible job adapting. Yes, I'm mad that he skipped Therese. Yes, I'm mad that they skipped most of the stuff in Millis. And yes, I am extremely mad that they skipped pretty much all of Edis's perspective from the light novel adaptation to the anime. But it is what it is. Were people bumping it for that? No, I don't think so. I think there was a lot of people that did like it, but I don't think this is a lot. Again, it was a very good adaptation. If it was light novel readers, a lot of them could be seeing that it was a really good adaptation despite the skips. And most everybody else either acknowledged that it was a really good story or that it was visually amazing. You don't have to make excuses for why it's doing good. And I really hate when people try to make excuses like, oh, this is not a good show. Why are people bumping it? It must be the light novel. There's many cases where an adaptation is bad and the source material readers will bash it. They bash the hell out of it. I cannot see people, if it wasn't a good adaptation, to bump it for that reason. Just to bump it because of the source material. I don't see that. There you go. There you go. There you go. Soma Spider, so what? People love the source material. The anime? 7.14. Okay, going back here because I skipped ahead here. The idea that the MC is apparently strong for no reason, there's no indication for Rudeus being strong. By all accounts, for literally, again, this is based on the first season, even into the second season, we're establishing on a regular basis that Rudeus is not powerful. He's not all powerful. He got the demon eye, which helped him kind of see forward a little bit, but what happened when he used it on Reserve? He still gets his butt kicked. He's able to use it on Edis because she's still inexperienced. But Edis is literally the only person he's able to beat. Everybody else, he gets stomped. He gets stomped on a regular basis. The only reason that he overcomes certain things is either using his knowledge, tricking somebody, or having somebody else helping him. Okay, let's run it through it. Opening up the series. Okay, he finds a book, and he sits there and learns on it. It shows that he keeps going there and learning. So he has to sit there and learn this spell book. He doesn't know magic immediately. Okay, he discovers, doesn't realize it, how to do silent casting. He thinks that's amazing. That's gotta be my cheat skill. What happens shortly later? Sylphie does it. Really quickly. So he's not overpowered. She pulled it off really, really quickly. So that's not his special ability. Cut forward. Every time he fights Paul beats the fire out of him. So he's not overpowered, huh? Okay, skip forward. He's training with Edis, getting his butt kicked by Edis. Trains with Giling, gets his butt kicked by Giling. Does his whole kidnapping thing. And what happens when he faces off against a North-style person? He nearly dies. Why did he survive? Giling saved him. Are we getting a pattern here? Everything he's fought, he gets his butt kicked. He's not overpowered. Getting transported to the other side of the world. The only reason he survived in the Demon Continent is because Rajur was there. Every time they fight something, he nearly dies. The Cobra nearly dies. Everything nearly dies every single time. Rajur saves his life. Edis is his guard. Continuing on, he's fighting Paul. Nearly gets his butt kicked by Paul, and he was drunk. He was drunk, and he nearly got his butt kicked by Paul. Traveling on, going back to the Central Continent, traveling up north. Who does he run into? Pax. The idiot Pax traps him in a barrier. Pax beat him. Okay, we're going off into the jaw. We're going in the mountains. Who does he run into? Orsted, the dragon god. What happens? He dies. Every single encounter, are we getting a pattern here? Rudeus dies or gets his butt kicked or gets saved. He's never beat anybody. Again, with Gallus down here, you can call that a victory, but he had the Sacred Beast there, and he had Geese there with him. Rudeus is not powerful. Anyways, but yes, he is working hard in this new life. He's doing much better in this new life. That is true. He's working out. He's like, man, I want to keep fit. I want to train myself. I want to learn magic. He is trying. It's a good thing to note there. At least you're noting what the whole purpose of the story is. That's good. My personal recommendation is skip this first season, or at least skim through the first few episodes. Trust me, you will miss nothing of value. Wrong. So what you're saying is watch when he first arrives there. He's training magic. He meets Sylphie. He meets Roxy. And then he goes and meets Edis. And then stop. So you're missing Petagus, you're missing him getting Aqua Hartia, you're missing the displacement incident, you're missing the transportation, you're missing Rajurd, you're missing Rajurd's whole plight of trying to redeem his people and get rid of the prejudice of the Superds. You're missing everything about the Demon Continent, the Adventure Guild, you're missing the cultures and everything in the Demon Continent. You're skipping the Beastvault Village, the Sacred Beast. You're going into Millis. You're skipping everything around Millis, which is the major religion of the world itself. You're skipping Paul and his desire to reunite his family, save people. He's, freeing people from the Fatoa region that were displaced, saving their lives. You're missing that whole extremely emotional segment where Paul literally is in a depressed state because he's fearing the next day he's going to either not find his family or find them dead, because he's constantly finding displaced people that are just dead because they got transported and fell to their death, transported in front of monsters, or just killed by bandits, or worse things happen to their bodies. You're missing all that stuff. Them reuniting and making a bond there where Rudeus finally seemingly accepts Paul as somebody close to him that he can care for. You're skipping the travels to the Central Continent, the Sharon. You're skipping everything around Sharon, Zenoba, Pax, which are all important stories. And you're going to skip Orsted. Turning Point 2, which is probably easily one of the biggest mind-blown moments of the first season. And then Rudeus basically separating with Edis and completely destroying himself. Yeah, Season 2 is going to make perfect sense. Season 2 will make perfect sense. Do that. And then throughout that entire thing is Rudeus and his changes in his life. Again, this is this new life where before he was bullied, now he's got a new chance. His second life, he's going to try things. And yes, he has all these massively nasty habits from his previous life, but he's slowly learning a new life and constantly dealing with the fact that he's still got that trauma from his past life. Every time he's in a room full of people staring at him judgmentally, he freezes and vomits. It's his character. Everything here you're skipping. No, don't do that. The story for a power fantasy, at least, it's not a power fantasy. Don't watch this for a power fantasy. Because if you're looking for that, yeah, you're going to say it's okay because it's not. But with it comes classic problem of, if the MC is so strong, why is there issues in the first place? Because he's not strong. The main key thing that Rudeus points out on a regular basis is that he doesn't have a battle aura. That's something he experienced when he was fighting Paul. He just was not producing a battle aura. Anybody that's a swordsman, physical fighter in this world is able to produce a battle aura. What a battle aura is that it kind of cloaks the person in mana, basically. It's the simplest way to explain it. And that's able to basically boost all their strength, physical capability, movement, all that kind of stuff. Rudeus can't do that. He's literally like a tissue paper standing there. A swordsman can sneeze and it will shred him in half. That's how fragile Rudeus is. And that's something that's been on his mind every time he's in a bad situation is, I'm going to die in a split second. Paul showed that to him all the time. Rajerd showed that to him. Edish shows that to him on a regular basis. Gallus was a rude awakening of that. And yes, when he's seen Rajerd and Orsted fighting, that's a prime example. Rudeus got the fire beat out of him by Orsted. He's not overpowered. What makes you think he's overpowered? What did Rudeus do that makes you think he's overpowered? He's not. The only thing cool that he can do is he has a lot of mana, and he's able to do silent casting. That's it. That's it. That's all he can do at this point. What makes you think he's OP? A single swordsman that's not even that powerful can kill him in a blink of an eye. He's not OP. The premise of the plot is okay, but the actual character writing of MC at least makes it by far the worst. Okay. Objectively speaking, 7 out of 10, but only because I try to separate character from story, which itself is impossible. Yeah, that's impossible. You can't. The story is Rudeus. It's him being a nasty person, a reject of society, a person that society itself would not want to exist. Society has rejected him, and now he's got a new life, and he wants to take advantage of that new life. If you don't like Rudeus, the story is useless. The story has always been about him. It's in his mind. It's always about him. Art and animation, average. For first season, really? It's not great, but it's not terrible either. Overall, well done. Bonus points for some of the battle scenes thus far, 7.5. Okay, dude. Character, people who say Rudy, the MC, is relatable and feels so human should take a good look in the mirror. Bingo. You caught it on the head. Good job. You're exactly who this story is making fun of. Refugien, when he talks about this story, is the idea of somebody who's at their worst and wants to try to do better, and he hopes you won't reject them. If you want to sit here and say anybody that looks at Rudeus and thinks that he is relatable or whatever, look in the mirror. You're judging people for the bad state they've gotten themselves into, and you're telling them, don't get better. For all intents and purposes, MC is lazily written and just a pervert child fantasy story. No, he's not. No, he is somebody who was bullied. I'm sorry for anybody that comes to these videos on a regular basis. He is a person who was severely bullied. He was stripped naked, hung up on a fence, and all of his classmates sat there, laughed at him, took photos of them, probably spread them throughout the entire school. He was brutally S.A., hung up, stripped naked, and humiliated. This is a person that gave up on society itself, hates society, and everybody that tries to come in that door to try to help him, he thinks they're downplaying what he went through. And he went down this hole and never able to come out of it. And thus, he's going to be really messed up. He's been stunted severely psychologically. This is a thing that happens. And yes, it perverts the mind. Hiding from that and acting like it doesn't exist in the world is exactly why people like this exist and have nowhere to turn to. But it's okay, because it's an anime, I guess. No, it's a story. Like, don't just peg it as because it's anime. It was a novel, and it became an anime. It's not an excuse that because it's anime. It's what the story that he wanted to tell. Somebody that was psychologically abused, physically abused, and that destroyed his mind. And yes, he's really nasty because of it. But the whole point is to see how he sees a future and moves towards better things. As someone who's read the manga, because I'm also trash, the manga's terrible, dude. Stop acting like that's a good thing to gloat about. The manga's terrible. I'm going to read it eventually, but it's going to be to laugh at it because I've read some of it and it's not good. I will say this does get better over time. Don't believe him. But the author makes it really hard to keep character consistent. For so much effort put in, ultimately, the author just shoves the pervert reminder at us. Rudeus, and I think this is a sign of a misconception that people have, not to say that it makes it right, by the way. He's not necessarily this, he's just fine with anything. If you notice that, like, he's constantly, whatever he can get, he's after it. Like, whatever he can look at, he's after. It's not like specifically this. This is a thing that obviously everybody's going to point at because it is an aspect of it that is inexcusable. That is the one side of what he does that is inexcusable. And I perfectly agree with that. The other characters are substantially better, if not a bit flat. Okay. So Rajurd's not better. He's flat. Okay. Overall, 3 out of 10. If MC was any other character in the show, I would have given it easily a 6.5 at least. That's the interesting thing. You're like 3 out of 10. But if he was any other character, 6.5. But they're substantially better, but flat. I mean, but I agree. Like, this is a series that has so many great characters that I would love a perspective of all of them. Enjoyment. Overall, the first arc is just so cringy that I can't get over it, and will likely be dropping the show. I might take a look at later seasons. The later arcs are just so much better that I can't fathom why the author originally started like this, thinking it was a good idea. Because it's the point. Again, I keep telling people, if this part of it bothers you, you're not going to get the rest of it. If this part doesn't make sense to you, I guess the best way to put it, if this doesn't make sense to you why it was started this way, the rest of it won't have impact. Because you're not willing to go here. It's like one of these videos I'd done for one person. They were mocking the abuse that he had in his previous life. And they can't understand all this other stuff. I'm like, because you missed the first part of it. That's the whole point. You're missing that. You're missing what abuse and bullying does to people. Again, not to say that his bad actions are excused by it. It's just that's the reason for it. Overall, if you want a good fantasy isekai, go watch Slime. I love Slime, by the way, but they're two different things, dude. This is like a psychological seinen drama. Slimy Isekai is a fun adventure comedy. What the hell is wrong with you combined? They're not the same at all. If you want to watch another power fantasy with a side of, in general, I'm a horny teenager, go watch this. It's not a power fantasy. It's a psychological drama adventure. Wow. Anyways, 5 out of 10. There you go. Good read, I guess. This one should be more interesting. Mixed feelings. Japanese NEET tragically dies, finds himself in another world, blah, blah, blah. We all heard the premise before. It's not particularly unique. It's an isekai series, spawned from other notable isekai series, and the fact that this is the only thing the anime consumers have an appetite for. This is wrote back in the original light novels wrote a while back. Yes, it wasn't a new idea when the light novel series, web novel technically, was first started. It wasn't a new idea. It did spawn a lot of concepts from it. It has a lot of unique features back when it was wrote. But yeah, isekai is popular. I don't want to have an overly negative tone because for what it's worth, Mushoku Tensei is fine. Like a lot of series that would give a strong 6 to a light 7. Mushoku Tensei has some great moments, some pretty terrible moments, and some okay moments. The premise here is that the protagonist is reincarnated into another world as the heir to a noble aristocrat and his wife in a small village. Not really. I mean, yes, they are the Grey Rat family, but Paul has basically spit in the face of his father. He has left the Grey Rat family. He has the name, but he has no power, no standing whatsoever. The protagonist retains memories of his previous life and uses his opportunity to start anew and have a good life. In my humble opinion, this is the most perfect example of an overrated show. Here we go. I love the Overrated. The Overrated is so great. Whenever I see Overrated, I always see this is more popular than I want it to be. If it's underrated, it's less popular than I want it to be. And I will fully acknowledge it whenever I say that. I'm saying the same exact thing. Seeing Overrated is almost like saying objectively everybody's wrong, essentially. You're saying objectively everybody's wrong. Everybody that hit anything above what I want it to be is objectively wrong. That's an impossible thing to say. Mushoku Tensei is a very smart series. It's entertaining and it throws you curveballs by subverting viewer expectations and by having genuine shocking plot twists. But it's overrated. It's not the typically campy, gory, self-serious narrative that tends to catch on here in the West, which is something that I really like about it. Even though I didn't care for the characters or the plot or anything like that, I really did find it entertaining from an episode-by-episode standpoint. You didn't like characters, plot. What did you like? You found it entertaining, but you didn't like the characters or the plot or anything like that? Okay, let's see. Now, why do I call it overrated? Yes, please tell us. Well, to an extent, it's because it can't overcome the trappings of its genre. What's its genre? I'm very curious what you think its genres are. I'm not the only one that's gotten sick of. I'm guessing was what he's saying. I'm not the only one that's getting sick of isekai. For the past 5 years, at least, isekai series have become more and more abundant and have taken up more and more attention and dialogue in the general milieu. What does it have to do with the show? I'm sick of isekai, so this has to be bad because it's in the isekai genre. Is that the argument here? Yes, isekai is extremely popular. It sells. You throw isekai in the cover art of a novel series, it's probably going to sell just based on another isekai. It's a comfort. The idea of isekai is a great concept because depending on what kind of other world it is, if it's transported isekai, is it trapped isekai, is it a rebirth isekai, it's an idea of being able to go isekai to another world. And people love that. It's an escapism to its truest form. It doesn't have any bearing to the concept of what it is. I think that's the biggest problem that people have is they attach isekai to bad writing. If it's isekai, it's got to be bad writing. No, it's just the writer's bad. The story concept is isekai. There's tons of comedies. And guess what? There's tons of bad comedies. There's tons of bad romances. It's just because isekai is something that people like talking about because of escapism. But if you look at any different season, there's not that many isekais. As much as people think that isekais is all over the place, yeah, there was a few seasons that we had at some point where there was like 6 shows, but it was in a season of like 50. Why people were just talking about those 6 shows? That's your circles. Go look for people talking about the romances. Go look for people talking about the slice of life. Why is it just because you're seeing people talk about isekais means that it's an abundance of it and there's too much of it when there's not really that many in a season? You're looking for it or you're seeing it. Go look for people talk about anything else. Join our Discord. We have people talking about every genre. You just gotta find the right people. Does isekai as a genre suck? Honestly, I would have to say yes for several reasons. It doesn't suck. The isekais you're watching or reading just is a bad writer. Isekai as a concept is not bad. Isekai outside of trapped in another world angle are nothing more than action adventures. Isekai outside of trapped in another world. So, isekai, another world, outside of being trapped in another world, are nothing more than action adventures. So, if you're okay with trapped isekais, you're not okay with reborn isekais or transported isekais. You just like trapped in isekai, which I guess trapped isekai means like trapped in an MMO, which that's just kind of trapped in an MMO. That's not really another world, but that's nitpicking. The cast travels around a fictional world and fight monsters. They do that in trapped in another world angles. What are you talking about? I don't understand. The cast travels around a fictional world and fight monsters and meet new friends and enemies. They do that in trapped in another world. So a great deal of time from a narrative standpoint involves nothing more than world building, foreshadowing, and setup for future seasons or future light novel chapters. This is an adaptation issue. What you're explaining here is an adaptation issue. That is not the fault of isekais. You're mad because every season, and this is the seasonal trap. And I'm not criticizing this person here. I think that there is a explanation for this that I want to get into. What you're in right now is a seasonal trap. This is the idea that every season new shows come out. And I would probably argue, I should have checked when this person actually wrote this. This is probably back when second seasons was very unheard of. For the longest time, every seasons was first seasons of new stories. They were all source material bait. And again, that's the seasonal trapping that you get with anime, is what happens is every season, there's a new season of 60 shows, and they're all a single season of adaptation. So you're getting the opening segments of a book, and you're not getting to where the punchline goes to. You're learning about a new world, but you never get to where the world goes to. That's not a problem with any story. That's just the story opening up. You have to open up the world. You have to explain the world. You have to get into characters. You have to meet characters. You have to build up a story to the point where you get to climax. That's not a problem with isekais. That happens in romance. What happens when you watch a romance? You meet the main character. You meet their friends. You find the love interest. Or you gather 2 love interests. You have a love triangle. Do you ever get to the actual romance? Not typically. Yeah, Your problem is the single season adaptation problem. That's nothing to do with isekais. Very interesting. On top of that, it has an ongoing plot, characters, and backstories that needs to establish. So just by the genre convention alone, most isekai don't get the benefit of the doubt for me because they are juggling so much in 24 episodes that what chance do they have of being good? Again, this is not a staple of isekai. This is a staple of single season adaptations. Mushoku Tensei is a rare case where they want to adapt the whole thing. They don't have to. They have no obligation to do that. They don't have no contractual reason to do that. But that's what they were actually planning on doing. Thus, you're actually going to get a full adaptation here. And yes, other shows like Slimy Isekai and stuff are getting lots of adaptation. We're in a new age of anime where it does benefit these producers to actually do multiple seasons, and it's great. Welcome to a really good age of anime right now, even though there's 60 plus shows every season. Do this huge amount of juggling and transitioning between different plot points, genre tropes, all the while trying to execute upon said things, even when we get good characters. What screen time do they have to be fleshed out and fully realized? With the exception of the main cast, the side characters don't get character arcs. I agree with you. I hate this. I hate that the anime adaptation is of Mushoku Tensei specifically. I'm sure you're talking about isekai as a genre still. The sad reality is that Mushoku Tensei adaptation is very Rudeus focused, and thus we rarely get side characters. I think the only time we ever had a side chapter adapted was Paul briefly in the first part of the first season. We briefly had a moment of him considering what he's going to do with Rudeus. That was a segment of Paul. Yes, we got a little brief moment where we got a perspective of Lily in that time as well. Since then, Edis the Goblin Slayer episode, that was an Edis chapter, but we don't really get other characters' perspectives, and there's a lot in the light novel. And like I was mentioning earlier, Edis's perspective in volume 6, which would be right at the end of the first season, was an incredible segment. And it explains her struggles and everything that she's going through and what she's pained with and how she's constantly afraid of being left behind when they got displaced and how she was trying so hard not to be a burden upon Rudeus. It was such a good segment. Skipped. Anyways, I agree with you here. I wish they got more love. What they get is half-baked backstories that are supposed to serve as character arcs. I'm guessing you're talking about Rejured and, oh yeah, Roxy got a brief moment, I guess. Which, by the way, Roxy's adaptation of her going back to her village was actually so good. It far surpassed the light novel. It was a great adaptation. Almost every isekai I watch is flawed from this perspective as well. Again, it's not strictly isekai. These are stories that are not fully adapted. There's your single seasons, introducing characters, having a quick storyline plot point, and then by the source material. I've heard several reviewers, commenters, and YouTubers say this show has good, unique, original characters. After watching both seasons, I'm guessing you're meaning parts, because this is a review on part 2. So I'm guessing you're meaning parts, part 1 and part 2. I have to question, were we even watching the same series? Great argument. I hate this argument. I'm sorry, I just hate this argument. Were we watching the same thing? Because everything you said is wrong. These characters are cut and paste archetypes from other fantasy action adventure isekai to their core. I think he meant copy paste. I hope that he didn't cut them out of other stuff, because then you would just have, I don't know, Rimuru character in Mushoku Tensei. I'm joking. Every single one, with exception to the Mangod, there's not one original character here in the slightest. All right. Challenge time. Here we go. Ready? Person that, if by some chance you actually watch this video, and if you do, hi, how's it going? No ill will here. Just having fun. Let's enjoy it. Message me another show that has a male character who, at his young age, had a falling out with his father, went to a training hall because he thought he was the strongest person ever, ended up training in that training hall, showing up all the other trainees, eventually getting mad at the other people because they were jealous of how strong he was. He decides to get back at them by forcing himself upon daughter of the sword hall trainer, runs away just out of spite, just because he knows that'll make him mad, runs away, ends up becoming an adventurer, becomes an S-rank adventurer, has a lot of fun. Eventually, sleeps with this one girl who's very religious. She says it's okay to do it as long as we get married. If I get pregnant, she gets pregnant. He leaves his adventuring life, goes back to his family, begs his uncle, please give me a place to stay and a job. He gets a small, nice little place out in the middle of a village where he's able to protect the village from gathering mana in the forest, protecting the village from the monsters. Eventually has a son, raise the son, but has like this inferiority complex with his son because his son's such a genius that he feels like he can't be a proper father. Eventually having 2 more daughters because he sleeps with that same girl that he slept with before and cheated on his wife. Eventually his entire family is displaced by this displacement incident. He has to travel around the world putting together people to do this massive search party to find every single individual that was displaced by the displacement incident, drinking himself to a stupor just in order to avoid his own stresses. His own people are getting murdered on the street because they're having to save people from forced servitude. Eventually gets reunited with his son and lashes out on his son because his son was having a fun little adventure while he was afraid he's going to find his family mutilated, crushed, destroyed, or being forced upon by some noble. Tell me a show that has that character. Tell me a show that has that character. Rejured. Tell me a story that has that character. A guy who commanded his men to put down their spears that they're born with, their spears they're born with, to pick up cursed spears before they go mad, traveling around and killing everybody, enemy and their own families, without even thinking about it because they went berserk, eventually getting snapped out of it because his own son shattered the cursed spear. He awakens from the curse with his son's finger chomped between his teeth, and he's seeking to remove the fear of the Superds and the hatred of the Superds that was caused by those spears, that they were tricked to carry those spears, the spears that he commanded his men to pick up. Tell me a story that has a Rejured. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Tell me. I can go on, but let's continue. And yes, everything I just said is in the anime adaptation. The only caveat was Rejured commanding his men to pick up the spears and his son's finger being in his mouth. But everything else was covered. You just didn't want to see it, right? Which accentuates my biggest gripe. The characters aren't interesting because you're not trying. At all. They don't have interesting motivations. Trying to destroy hundreds of years of prejudice against your own tribe is not interesting. A father wrecked by his family being displaced across the world is not interesting. A maid who raises and grooms her own daughter because she feels guilty for sleeping with the husband of a wife that trusted her, that's not interesting. Okay, I'm curious what you're interested in. No interesting motivations, interesting emotion, neurosis, situations, nothing. Okay. You be you. If I can be bold here, I think you've already been. Another huge problem with the isekai genre, you're still stuck on the isekai genre. Let's see if this is actually specific to isekai, though. Let's see. Is that I feel that most of the authors are vastly confused about what genre they are. Again, that's everything. That's everything. That's not isekai specific. The way this series is constructed feels like a shonen action adventure. It feels like a shonen action adventure. Mushoku Tensei feels like a shonen action adventure. You're going to be extremely depressed when you get into season 2 because there's very little shonen action. I'm going to guess that by shonen, you mean like Shonen Jump. Like the concept of like, you know, action fun stuff for young kids and boys. This is not a shonen. By demographic alone, this is not a shonen. It would have to be like seinen. If a shonen, yeah, a boy is going to read it, would probably read it, would probably watch it, but I don't think with how much psychological aspects are to it and a lot of the mature themes are in it, I don't think this is geared towards shonen, like young boys. They're not going to understand a lot of the psychological aspects of it. Yes, there's going to be some boys out there that are very mature for their age. I'm not saying across the board. I'm just saying there's a lot of themes in here that you're not going to understand as a young boy. These are adult themes. These are psychological adult concepts. And I think a lot of the people that don't seem to understand a lot of those psychological scars and whatnot Rudeus is going through is either they don't want to empathize with him, which is obvious. They just miss it, or they just don't understand it. Action adventure, yes. There's a lot of parts of, especially the journey after displacement, that is very action adventure. But That's just a segment. It's just a growth point for Rudeus. If you're looking for any of this in Mushoku Tensei, you're going to be drastically disappointed because there's way too much time that it's not doing that. In a show like Yu Yu Hakusho, My Hero Academia, Black Clover, you don't necessarily need to have mature, interesting characters because that isn't the selling point of the genre, because it's not My Hero Academia, it's not Shonen Jump, it's not Black Clover, it's not Dragon Ball. Mushoku Tensei is an adult, young adult, seinen psychological drama action adventure, if anything. Nobody's watching Hunter x Hunter because they think Gon is a deep, thoughtful, interesting, and relatable character. I would argue there's a lot of people that think that Gon's writing is really good. I'm not I haven't watched it, but I'm assuming that I've seen a lot of people like their character. They're watching because all the surrounding elements, the crazy, wacky villains, the character designs, the visual and action and power-ups, that's the huge selling point for something like that. And the isekai author's approach is very similar. Huh? I mean, yeah, in a general sense, I've seen, yes, a lot of isekais that don't really do much to develop characters, but that's not Mushoku Tensei. However, for me, that's not enough to keep me involved or engaged. It's basic and not really enjoyable or thought-provoking. Okay, again, putting Mushoku Tensei aside, because I think you're trying to group up all isekai together, which I think is a very odd thing to do. Because again, there's a lot of romances that are very simple, but there's a lot of romances that are very deep. There's a lot of dramas that are very simple. There's a lot of dramas that are very deep. There's a lot of shonen series that are basic or sometimes very deep. They can all do their own thing. But yes, if I look at the broad assortment of isekais, especially over the last 5 years or so, where we got so much of it coming out, yes, there's a lot of it that doesn't have much thought-provoking stuff in it. But I think your problem is that you're looking for thought-provoking in everything. And honestly, and I've made this argument before, that's not the purpose of anime. The purpose of anime as a whole is not to be thought-provoking. The purpose of every story out there is not to be thought-provoking. When you look at AniChart or MyAnimeList and you look at the seasonal listings and you scroll through it and you're going, which one's going to be making me thought-provoked? You're probably not going to find any. Why? Because most anime, its purpose is to entertain. All isekai isn't out to be Satoshi Kon. Satoshi Kon is its own thing. Psychological thrillers and stuff are its own thing. Crime investigation and whatnot is its own thing. If you're looking for thought-provoking, it's not going to be in every series. And there's plenty of isekai out there that's very thought-provoking. There's plenty of romance out there that are thought-provoking. There's plenty of drama out there that are thought-provoking, but they're not all seeking to do that. Especially when it isn't executed with the same flair as the aforementioned series above. Okay. The last 4 episodes of the second season, which again I'm thinking is part 2 right here, were some of the best of the series, which is something that I really appreciated about Mushoku Tensei, is that the pacing works here. The beginning of Season 1 and the end of Season 2 are good, great episodes of anime, which is, well, this is really weirdly wrote. Which again, I think I can still talk about Part 1 and Part 2 of Season 1, which is why Mushoku Tensei is not disappointing. I started to watch this series expecting it to be one of the best anime of last year, 2021. I was met with something that was entertaining for large swaths of it, and is one of the best isekais I have seen in a while, albeit extraordinarily familiar and flawed in several areas that I care about. Viewer rating of 6. So in the end, even though you were mostly all negative and just not liking isekais as a genre, 6. I kind of wish that you would point out more things that you seem to like, because you seem to like it, but that's typically, unfortunately, the thing that a lot of people get stuck in when they're doing reviews. They want to focus on negative stuff. So, and again, most of this is really just talking about isekai as a genre and your problems with genres in general. So, and again, I think a good chunk of what you think is an isekai problem is a seasonal problem. So it ended up turning into an interesting discussion. I really was. I came here for one topic and I ended up jumping into a different topic. So it turns out interesting in the end. If we can spark some weird conversation in a Mangodsplaining, perfectly fine. The Mangodsplaining is wise in many ways than just the realms of Mushoku Tensei. Anywho, that was a good read. Thank you to this person that posted this. Again, good read. Enjoyed reading your thoughts on it. Again, I do have my mixed feelings on what you're saying there, but doesn't mean that we can't just sit down and have a chat afterwards. So Really appreciate the write-up. But anyhow, that is it for this Mangodsplaining Mushoku Tensei. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as always. Always have fun making these videos. Definitely hit that like button down below if you enjoyed this video. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this segment here. Again, be nice. I can be nice. Sometimes I find the comments way more meaner than I am. I'm like, man, I'm really nice about these people, and there's some mean people on that. I guess that's YouTube comments, though. People get really mean on YouTube comments. I might take a break from Mangodsplaining unless somebody sends me a good one, because it took a while to kind of find some more that were well wrote. It seems like most people just want to say bad PDF Rudeus, and it's like, yeah, I get it. I don't need to talk about that over and over again. So I don't know, we might end up running out of content for Mangodsplaining. It's not a bad thing. I mean, it's not like we can't come back to this later on when we get another season or something like that. It doesn't have to be, or I can get back into season 2 stuff. But I'm starting to see a lot of things that I've already talked about before, so I'm kind of skipping over a lot of the reviews, but we'll see. This might be the last Mangodsplaining for a while, but it is what it is. I'm not going to force a Mangodsplaining, basically. Anyhow, with that said, thank you guys for watching. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe before you leave. If you like this content, you want to support the channel more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate what it does. And until next time, if there's a next time, other videos will be here. Y'all take care.